Welcome back to another daily update here in the TandemCTelevision studios, and today we're going to be working on the Ripsaw project. There's just a few items we need to wrap up on this project to get it done, so I thought we'd get started on them. Don't go anywhere. Before we get started working on the Ripsaw, in a previous update I had mentioned that we have two different hatches for it. One that's open and one that's closed, and at the time I didn't have the open hatch over here at the new studio. So I wanted to do, for anybody that's new to the channel, I wanted to go ahead and show you what that looks like real quick just before we get started working on it. Basically, we'll be able to have an open hatch, or we can switch that out for the closed hatch. These are attached via magnets. So when we're filming, we'll have some versatility. So if the vehicle's driving around with the driver inside, we can have the closed hatch attached. If the vehicle stopped and the characters are outside the vehicle, we can have the open hatch attached. Gives a little more realism, like they actually got out of the vehicle. But speaking of getting in and out of the vehicle, we need a character that does get in and out of the character, which gets in and out of the vehicle, that is, in and out of the Ripsaw, which we have that character already, but we need that character to be able, we need this character to be able to sit inside of the Ripsaw, which can be a bit of a problem because it's a pretty tight squeeze in there. Right where he needs to sit is where the battery lives in this chassis, and that's gonna pose a real problem. Now, we could sit him on top of the battery hold-down strap. That's an option, just mount him right up on top of there, but he sits way too high in the chassis. I mean, his head literally sticks out of the hatch in the roof. So that's really not gonna work. What we're gonna have to do is sit him down in the battery tray. So I think what we'll have to do is completely remove the battery hold-down strap and sit him down in that battery tray. I removed the battery hold-down strap and set him down into the battery tray, and this puts him at a perfect height as far as the windows. His head is at that exact height of the driver's side window and for the front windshield. So that's gonna work perfect. But we now have two problems that we have to take care of. The one is pretty obvious of he's now in the battery tray. Where's the battery going to go? And I think we can scoot him far enough forward that we can actually fit a little hump pack behind him to power the car. I think there'll be enough room back there. But we also have a second problem with this center drive shaft. So he kind of rubs up against that center drive shaft, and I don't want him to get caught up in that, especially like his jacket and all these accessories on him. I don't want that getting caught up in that center drive shaft while we're filming. So what I think I'll do is just a simple solution. I'm just going to build a nice little box for him to sit in that'll create a wall between him and the battery behind him, and also a wall between him and the drive shaft. Super simple solution, but this is going to work perfect for us. I just built a little box out of some styrene I had laying around, and this is going to give basically him a little compartment to sit in to hold him in place while we drive around and film. Again, it gives the separation between him and the battery pack behind him, and more importantly, gives a wall between him and that center drive shaft. Now, I don't think you'll ever see this little box that we built here, but I did go ahead and paint it black. We are going to be putting some red lights in this, and it will glow, and I was afraid that this white styrene might show if we get close enough looking through one of the windows. So I did go ahead and paint it black, and I think that this is, again, perfect solution, super simple. Sometimes problems don't need complicated solutions. This vehicle is being built strictly for filming, so this vehicle is not going to be used to go try to win some awards, some beauty awards. It's meant to look good on film, and what's important with the problems we had here was just getting the figure in position, held in position, so when we film and when we're painting around this car and doing everything we're going to be doing, that he's in the correct position. Simple solution. It's all that's needed. Now, we do have what I think is going to be a more complicated problem coming up, which is we want to be able to change the ride height of the Ripsaw. We want it to drive around at one ride height, and then when it stops, lower to the ground and sit on the ground, so it's going to have two different ride heights. That, I think, is going to take a more complicated solution, and we're going to talk about that. I want to get your input on it, quite honestly, and we'll talk about it right after this commercial break, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back, and thanks for sticking around. So we need to change the ride height of the Ripsaw. So whether it's driving down the street or sitting still, we want that ride height to change up and down. So it to be at a higher ride height while it's driving, sitting on the ground while it's sitting still. Basically like an air ride suspension or a hydraulic suspension. And normally that's what you would do. You would change the height of the suspension to change the ride height of the vehicle. Now that's a complicated thing to do with an RC car. We've done it in the past, but it can be a little bit complicated. So I thought we'd go with a more simple solution, which is just changing the height of the body. Just raising and lowering the body just a little bit. I just need it millimeters, just enough to get it up off the ground to drive around. And I thought the way we could do that is by using those same linear actuators that we're using for the TRX-Z. We're using these to open hatches, to raise and lower missile launchers on the TRX-Z. I thought what we could do is put one of these on all four corners of the Ripsaw and use it to just lift the body. Until I looked at what the weight they're rated for. So these are rated at 1.5 grams each, max. So that means at max that 4 of these could raise 6 grams. So I thought, oh gosh, I better go weigh the body of the Ripsaw, and that's just what I did, and it actually weighs over 12 grams. So that's not going to work. We'd need to use 8 of these, a minimum 8, probably more than 8, to be able to lift the body of the Ripsaw. Went back to the drawing board. I still wanted to stick with the linear actuator idea. I think that's the simplest solution. I went and found this one. So this linear actuator is actually rated for 5 pounds, so more than enough to lift the body of the Ripsaw. Now, it does cost twice as much. One of these costs twice as much as 4 of those other linear actuators, but it's actually going to be cheaper at the end because we'll actually probably end up needing like 12 of these things to lift, 12 of the cheaper ones to lift the body of the Ripsaw as opposed to just one of these. So this will actually end up being cheaper, and I think will be the solution. What we can do is just mount it center, like a center pole in the middle, let it raise and lower the body from the center of the chassis. Simple solution. I think that's the way to go. Let me know what you think. I wanted to get your input on this, or do you have a better idea, an easier way to do this? Remember, we're on a bit of a time crunch. I could set up airbags around. That was a system we were doing. I'd have to get a small enough pump to fit into this vehicle in a tight space. I think that's going to be a tough thing to do. It's going to be hard to get a pump that fits along with other batteries and everything else. I think this is going to be the simplest way to go. Let me know what you think. Do you have a better idea? You have a better way of doing this? Let me know what you think about everything we're doing with the Ripsaw so far. Leave me those comments down below. Like I always say, the algorithm these days, they love the comments. Give me a thumbs up. That really helps in the algorithm. Also, hit that subscribe button if you've watched this long and you're not subscribed yet. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you want to help support the channel, hit the join button down below. That really does help. Or check out the Patreon page. There's a lot of perks you get from the Patreon page. We got an exclusive build going on at both places. So channel subscribers and over at the Patreon page, exclusive build going on for you guys. If you want to help support, maybe check that out. Thanks for joining me again today, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.